On May 2, 2011, 79 men flew into Pakistan without permission. Their target? The world's most wanted man. Nobody was supposed to know. 10 years earlier, hijacked passenger planes struck the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. The attacks killed nearly 3,000 people and triggered a massive global military response. The architect of those attacks was Osama bin Laden, the founder of al-Qaeda. Capturing or killing him became the primary objective of the ensuing manhunt. By late 2001, U.S. and allied forces had him cornered in the cave complexes of Tora Bora, Afghanistan. But in the freezing December mountains, bin Laden slipped across the border into Pakistan and vanished. For the next decade, the trail ran cold. Intelligence agencies poured massive resources into the hunt, chasing down rumors and questioning detainees, only to find dead ends. Bin Laden's survival relied on total technological isolation. To avoid signal interception, he stopped using telephones and the internet entirely, disconnecting from the digital world. Realizing they could not track a single digital footprint, the CIA pivoted. CIA analysts focused instead on human couriers, the physical links who carried his handwritten messages to the outside world. By 2010, the U.S. had spent nearly a decade and hundreds of billions of dollars on a manhunt that still hadn't produced a single verified sighting of the target. In August 2010, the focus on those human couriers led the CIA to a city in northwestern Pakistan called Abbottabad. The courier led them to a highly unusual 3-story building. It was a custom-built fortress, surrounded by concrete walls up to 18 feet high, topped with barbed wire and secured by 2 separate gates. This schematic illustrates the property's physical anomalies. It sat on a plot 8 times larger than neighboring houses. The residents had no landline or internet service, and they burned their own trash rather than putting it out for collection. The location was even more striking. The compound sat less than a mile southwest of the Pakistan Military Academy, the country's elite officer training ground. The most sought-after fugitive on the planet appeared to be living in a massive fortress right next door to the military academy of a major U.S. ally. This wasn't a remote cave in a lawless border region. Acting on this discovery meant the White House had to consider an unauthorized invasion of a sovereign nuclear-armed partner. Military planners presented several options. The safest approach for American personnel was an airstrike. They could level the entire compound using B-2 stealth bombers. But a bombing run would destroy the target's remains. The U.S. government needed definitive physical proof of death to prevent conspiracy theories and verify the mission's success. Another option was a joint operation. Washington could inform the Pakistani government and ask for their help in capturing or killing him. President Obama ruled that out. He and his advisors concluded that if they shared the intelligence, someone within Pakistan's military or intelligence network would likely leak the mission and tip off the target. That left only one viable path: Operation Neptune Spear, a surgical unilateral helicopter raid to hunt the target, who was given the codename Geronimo. The task fell to the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, specifically Red Squadron from SEAL Team 6. These operators spent weeks rehearsing the raid on a full-scale 1-to-1 replica of the compound. The U.S. was preparing to send ground troops into a blind spot with no backup. If the mission failed, or if Pakistani forces retaliated, it risked a direct military confrontation between the two nations. On the night of May 1, 2011, the preparations ended. The launch sequence began at an airfield in Jalalabad, Afghanistan. 79 operators boarded heavily modified, classified stealth Black Hawk and Chinook helicopters. They took off into the darkness for a 120-mile flight across the border. Crossing that line meant invading the airspace of a nuclear-armed nation. Every mile flown was a test of their stealth technology against an active military radar system. Pakistan's air defense radar remained silent. The infiltration was working exactly as designed. At this moment, the U.S. military had passed the point of no return. The operators were entirely alone, operating without a safety net, and relying completely on the element of surprise. They were now inside Pakistani airspace. Radar was silent. No one knew they were coming. But then, one helicopter started going down.
Urgent, hushed tone. A highly classified stealth Black Hawk helicopter drops out of the sky over Abbottabad, Pakistan. The infiltration is supposed to be silent, but the aircraft is losing altitude, spinning toward the compound floor. This wireframe model demonstrates a condition called vortex ring state. When the Black Hawk hovered over the high walls of the target compound, its own downwash hit the ground and bounced upward. The air recirculated back through the main rotor, destroying the helicopter's lift and pulling it into its own turbulence. The pilot forces a controlled crash, but the aircraft is too heavy. The tail section strikes the 12-foot concrete wall of the compound, and the impact shears off the tail section entirely, leaving the wreckage hanging over the outer perimeter. Despite the impact, all 24 Navy SEALs survived the landing without casualties. With their primary extraction vehicle destroyed before a single shot is fired, the operators abandon the cabin and immediately shift to their contingency plan. 7,000 miles away, inside the White House Situation Room, the president and his war cabinet are watching the crisis unfold through a silent feed. They have live video from a drone circling high above, but they have no way to hear the crash. The administration is now monitoring a potential Black Hawk Down scenario inside the borders of a nuclear-armed state. If the Pakistani military reacts before the SEALs can exfiltrate, the mission will collapse into a direct international conflict with an ostensible ally. Back on the ground, the SEALs force their way through the outer gates of the Waziristan Haveli. They deploy explosive charges to breach the metal doors, pushing past the burning wreckage of their own helicopter and into the main house. Local power outages have plunged the neighborhood into total darkness. Inside, the team must clear narrow hallways and unknown rooms floor by floor, never knowing if the next door is booby-trapped or if armed defenders are waiting in the corners. The ground team maintains a distinct optical advantage using GPN-VG-18 night vision goggles. The specialized four-tube design gives the operators a 120-degree field of view, allowing them to identify threats in the pitch-black compound with near-perfect clarity. Moving methodically, the team secures the lower levels and begins the ascent. The staircases are tight and easily defended from above. They clear the second floor and push toward the third story, where intelligence suggests the high-value target is hiding. The contrast is absolute. In Washington, high-tech command infrastructure monitors the operation from a sterile distance. But inside the dark compound, the mission relies on operators clearing blind corners in a vacuum of information, where satellite feeds provide no insight. Early public reports suggested a massive, protracted battle inside the compound. The reality was much shorter. The entire firefight, from the first breach to the final shot, lasted roughly 40 seconds. The heavily fortified perimeter masked a surprisingly light defense. Of the 5 people killed during the raid, only 1 man managed to fire a weapon at the infiltrating SEALs before being neutralized. Reaching the 3rd floor, the lead operator spots a figure retreating into a bedroom. The SEALs follow him inside and identify the primary target, Osama bin Laden. He is shot and killed instantly. The radio silence with Washington finally breaks. The ground commander transmits the code confirming the kill to the White House. Geronimo, EKIA. Enemy killed in action. A global manhunt that consumed a decade and cost trillions of dollars concludes in the dark, settled by less than a minute of isolated gunfire. The primary objective is complete, but the team is still stranded in foreign territory with a downed, highly classified asset. They have the body and the compound's hard drives, but they have less than 20 minutes to leave before the local military arrives. Standard protocol dictates that stealth aviation technology cannot be left intact. The pilots and explosive technicians rig the remaining chassis of the Black Hawk with thermite charges to melt the avionics and destroy the secret stealth coating. They detonate the charges. The explosion consumes the main body of the aircraft, but the force of the blast launches the severed tail section entirely over the compound wall. It lands in an adjacent field, almost completely intact. The SEALs board a backup helicopter and disappear. The assassination was executed with lethal precision, but the physical evidence left sitting in the dirt outside the wall ensures the mission's tactical success will be followed by a geopolitical crisis. The body is flown to Afghanistan for DNA identification, then transferred to the USS Carl Vinson in the North Arabian Sea. Within 24 hours of the raid, the founder of Al-Qaeda is buried at sea. U.S. officials cite religious custom for the rapid burial, but the primary motivation is strategic. Sliding the body into the ocean prevents the creation of a physical shrine that could serve as a rallying point for extremists. As the sun rises over Abbottabad, the isolation of the raid is broken by the morning light.
The local population and the Pakistani government survey the wreckage, realizing the full extent of the American intrusion. The Pakistani military faces a national humiliation. American forces breached their sovereign airspace, operated violently for 40 minutes, and departed undetected, all without triggering a single air defense alarm. This map illustrates the central suspicion of the aftermath. The Waziristan Haveli sits less than a mile from the Pakistan Military Academy. Intelligence reports immediately questioned how the world's most wanted man lived in the shadow of the nation's elite military training ground without the knowledge of the ISI.
The tactical triumph of the SEALs creates an immediate diplomatic disaster. A major recipient of American military aid is now the primary suspect in a case of state-sponsored harboring. The abandoned tail section becomes a diplomatic bargaining chip. Intelligence allegations suggest Pakistan allowed Chinese engineers to examine the wreckage and its classified stealth technology before eventually returning the debris to the United States. In Washington, the administration moves to control the global narrative. They aggressively suppress all photographic evidence of the body and the raid, enforcing a strict information blackout to prevent the public from seeing the mission's brutal reality. To shield the operational files, the administration ordered the Department of Defense to transfer all records to the CIA. By moving the documents to an intelligence agency that directed the mission, the files became immune to Public Freedom of Information Act requests. Operation Neptune Spear solidified a new model for American intervention. By integrating SEAL Team 6 with the CIA Special Activities Center, the military created a joint task force capable of executing missions ranging from hostage rescues to regime changes worldwide with minimal public oversight. The extreme information blackout birthed a vacuum. Investigative journalists and investigative reports cite anonymous sources, claiming the official narrative omits critical details, leading to alternative accounts and conspiracy theories that persist to this day. The primary objective of the mission was achieved with dead certainty, but the mechanics of the raid and the geopolitical fallout were immediately locked away, hidden behind layers of state secrecy. The operation eliminated America's greatest enemy, but the resulting erasure of the facts permanently blurred the lines between a tactical victory and a carefully manufactured intelligence cover-up.